If you thought Toyota was behind when it came to battery electric vehicles, they probably just proved you wrong. Toyota has just amended its plans for electrification. They're going harder, faster into battery electric vehicles against what many naysayers said they wouldn't do, and they were going to go bankrupt. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that salty route today, but they're expanding their EV portfolio here. 30 new battery electric vehicles by 2030. We'll go into some of those individual vehicles in a little bit. I want to go over the main points first, and then stay to the end. I'll give you some Lexus quick hitters. I made an entire video before this about Lexus going fully electric, so go and check that out after this video, and I'll summarize Lexus at the end for you guys. So by 2030, as a total of Toyota and Lexus, they want to sell 3.5 million battery electric vehicles. To give you an idea, when I was at Toyota Evolution like less than a month ago, this little graph here says that they were going to sell 2 million zero electric or zero emission vehicles, I should say. So they've upped it by 1.5 million vehicles by 2030. So by 2030, 1 million of those will be Lexus battery electric vehicles. That means 2.5 million will be Toyotas. Toyota wants to have an EV for everyone. That's why they have 30 different BEVs by 2030. They are upping their investment from 1.5 trillion yen to 2 trillion yen. And here's a slide after their Q&A session from their big announcement. BEVs are going to account for 4 trillion yen. To give you an idea, 4 trillion yen is 35 billion US dollars they're going to invest in battery electric vehicles for the next 9 years. So if 2 trillion yen is just for batteries, which 2 trillion yen is $17.5 billion, that's just for batteries. What's the other half for? Well, creating plants and assembly lines. They don't have dedicated assembly lines or plants, as far as I'm aware of, for battery electric vehicles. So they're going to have to build this infrastructure up around the world in order to produce battery electric vehicles quicker, faster, cheaper. And this announcement comes just on the heels of that big battery factory announcement in North Carolina that should be done by 2025, which will produce plug-in hybrid batteries, and of course, battery electric vehicle batteries. Another 4 trillion yen, again, $35 billion for hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and fuel cells, $70 billion or 8 trillion yen in the next 9 years. I don't know if I've seen anyone quite spend this much in terms of research and development for upcoming electrification. So yeah, if you guys were saying, oh, Toyota's dead in the water, they'll be bankrupt in the next 5 years, well, that's probably not you, because those type of people typically don't watch my content. Their battery procurement here, they have secured the materials, all the materials in terms of the supply chain for batteries up to 2030. They're going from 200 gigawatt hours, which I believe they announced in September. I think that's when I was in Plano, Texas for the Tundra media drive. They announced that they were going to have 200 gigawatt hours of batteries. Well, now that's been up to 280 gigawatt hours in just a matter of a few months. Isn't that crazy? So what about dealership fast charging being installed at the dealerships? Well, all they said in Japan, it would be required by 2025. Here in the United States, I would expect Lexus to have that in every single Lexus dealership by 2025. Again, that's just what I'm expecting. And then probably Toyota shortly after that across the United States. So that's one of the huge benefits of having this dealership network across the United States. You're essentially going to have fast chargers at every single dealership, not just for Lexus and Toyota, but if all the manufacturers do it correctly, you'll have it for every single manufacturer. So in theory, if there is a universal charging solution, every single dealership across the country, probably by 2030, will have fast charging installed there. So cars of all makes and models can charge at other makes and models dealerships in theory. That sounds too good to be true, but that's the type of effort we need in order for electrification to be mass adopted. And in terms of ICE development or internal combustion engine development, all they really said is that they're working on hydrogen engine for certain markets, and that could be an option in motorsports. All right, so make sure you have your snacks and drinks because we're going to dive into these models. I'll try to pick out some details on each individual one. I've already covered the Lexus ones. I'm not going to go into them. Make sure to watch my video that I posted previously. We're going to focus on the Toyotas here. This is the first mass-produced Toyota electric vehicle, the BZ4X, and we're going to run down the line. There are a lot to go over. Remember, 30 fully electric, battery electric vehicles by 2030. What we're seeing here obviously isn't 30. And you also have to keep in mind that among that 30 might be really small, tiny, like 1 or 2 seater vehicles, which besides this one, we don't really see on this list. But what you see here is a pretty fleshed out roster from 2025 to 2030 is what I'm expecting. And some of these vehicles coming in sooner, like the Lexus RZ and the BZ4X coming out as soon as next year. This small SUV, it looks very similar to the Igo X that's just been redesigned for Europe. It is more than likely, again, just for Japan and Europe, so not much to talk about there, other than they said it had world-leading efficiency, with power consumption only at 125 watt-hours per kilometer. And if you look at like a Tesla Model 3, that's 147 watt-hours kilometer, but that is not the same thing as a compact, tiny little city car. That is not nearly as aerodynamic in my guessing. A fully electric pickup truck. It looks like a Tacoma. It looks similar also to the Hilux, and the next generation of both of them could be very much the same truck. They're both going to be based on the TNGA-F platform, and what I believe we're looking at here is a pickup truck not based on a skateboard platform. I think it is a modification of the TNGA-F platform, and that's why it looks so much like a traditional truck. Kind of like how Ford is doing it with the F-150 Lightning initially, is that it's going to be a modification of their current pickup truck, and I think that's what's going on here. I could be wrong. It could be fully skateboard platform, but it's more than likely just a modification. And Toyota did say that those 30 BEVs by 2030, not all of them are going to be on the new eTNGA platform. A lot of them are going to be modifications of existing platforms like the UX300E. And guys, you've been asking for a new FJ Cruiser. Well, this is the closest thing that we have, and this is probably really good news that it's coming. This is the Compact Cruiser EV. It just looks like a miniaturized and electrified FJ Cruiser, and I know a lot of people would fork out, I don't know, 40 grand for something like this. Even though it's a little on the small end, this thing, look at the hooks. They're ready for you guys up front. So it just looks really, really cool. And I cannot believe Toyota is giving us all this juicy bits. I mean, they could have saved this electric FJ for a while, but nope, they just threw everything they got on the wall and we're just feasting. This, I mean, what does this look like to you? My first impression is that it looks like a Ford Mach-E. So, I mean, it just says crossover EV. Obviously, it's probably going to be coming to the United States market. Look, if the BZ4X is kind of like a RAV4, this is probably more like the Venza, a little bit more classy, a little bit more elegant, and kind of nipping on the heels of that Lexus environment. Not sure how I feel about this swooping window line in the back. It kind of reminds me of that really ugly Lincoln. Yes, this vehicle right here, the Lincoln MKT, which is one of the ugliest vehicles I've ever seen in my life. So that's the vibe I'm getting from this sort of rear proportions on this vehicle. And my God, guys, GR. This is Gazoo Racing. You can see that this is all carbon fiber up front. What's crazy is that this is a real clay model. Who knows? It could even be a working model. But you can tell like the details down here. This is definitely a real carbon fiber image. But looking at these lights, they're so clean and futuristic. This looks like a render. I cannot believe how incredibly futuristic this thing looks. I'm sure when you see it in person, it's not even going to look real, but it's really, really small comparing it to the Lexus sports battery EV, that what they're calling it. This is even smaller. So I'm thinking this is going to be the future MR2, and it's fully electric. My God, what a fun little vehicle this is, the Toyota box. Would we see this in America? Highly unlikely. This is probably like a Japanese only sort of vehicle. And it's hard to say how the doors open. It almost looks like they have Pelican style doors that lift upwards. Or it could have sliding doors as well, but that thing just looks really cute. It'd be really fun in congestion areas, and it's more of a glorified golf cart. And then this van here, my gosh, this thing would be so much fun. This is definitely a K car though. Definitely designed for the Japanese market. Maybe you would see it in Europe as well. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Nissan Cube, but I think it's really cute and minimal and futuristic at the same time. Lexus models, I'm not going to go into them because I already covered them. And then here we are with large SUV. And this looks to be nearly identical to the Lexus three-row crossover SUV as well. The rear taillights look the same. The only difference is or maybe slightly different colored wheels. The wheels look to be the same as well, and different lights on this large SUV compared to the Lexus version. So not much to see there, but that's the largest vehicle we've seen other than the pickup truck, but three-row 7-passenger, maybe 8-passenger SUV we've seen. BZ sedan. And gone are actual sedans, guys. Sedans are all coming into very aggressively sloping roof lines. You can see this Lexus IS back here. Call it a sedan, but it looks like a hatchback to me. So that's probably what this is going to be, either a liftback. It could be a sedan, kind of like how the Model 3, if I remember correctly, the Model 3 from Tesla it looks like a hatchback, but it's actually a trunk. This red vehicle that I don't know if I have an image on, it just looks like the Igo X, and it looks like this yellow one that we talked about earlier, just slightly different styling. So me looking at it, it could be different, maybe for the Chinese market or something like that, where they have several joint ventures with different Chinese companies and they have different styling for essentially the exact same car. BZ compact SUV. This thing is gorgeous. It looks like Toyota's finally getting on that crossover coupe bandwagon. This thing looks really, really cool. It kind of looks like the Nissan Ariya in terms of the sloping roofline, but more futuristic, more aggressive, more attractive. And we have those kind of lobster claw headlights that we see on the Igo X in this yellow vehicle that we saw earlier as well. And lastly, here is the BZ4X, which we know so much about. It's similar brethren. The Lexus RZ is back here. We just don't have details on the RZ yet in terms of battery capacity, motors, things of that nature, availability. We know the BZ4X will be available summer 2022 here in the United States. And we know the power trains, front wheel drive is going to 201 horsepower. All wheel drive will have 214 horsepower. And it'll have at least 220 miles of range on the all-wheel drive and 250 miles of range or so on the XLE front-wheel drive. Definitely stay tuned because I will give you guys hands-on impressions of not only Toyota's first electric vehicle, the BZ4X, but the RZ from Lexus as well. And a quick slideshow here through the Toyota's offerings. And you can see, yes, this could still be a trunk here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a liftback. And the handles are flush into the doors. When we look at this vehicle back here, they're actually protruding, which might indicate that this might be closer to production than the vehicle we just saw. And again, here, standard door handles doesn't mean that this is closer to production, but it gives you an idea that they're taking different design handles on these vehicles. And there are those kind of lobster claw headlights here on this really small SUV that we're not going to get in America, flush handles as well. And you can see the mirrors are actually on here. So this one is probably really close to production as well. Again, that Toyota / Lexus three-row crossover looks nearly identical. You can just see how much glass here though is implemented. So we don't have that much B pillars or C pillars or D pillars taking up that room and visibility for the rear passengers. So I like seeing that there. The Lexus IS or the next IS looking sick. This LFA / LC replacement, extra sick. Here's the RZ, which doesn't look that out of place compared to those first two cars we just saw. And it is confirmed it is RZ450E, just like the trademark suggested. Here's that three-row crossover that looks nearly identical to the Toyota one. And what we see here is definitely the BZ lineup. If this is BZ4X, this is BZ3, this is probably BZ2 or 1. This is probably BZ5 and BZ6. So there's a lot of BZs here, and that's what we're expecting from Toyota. And all the BZs will be on their ETNGA platform shared with Subaru. And I think Daihatsu might be in there as well. This is not going to be a BZ vehicle, at least I'm not expecting. But this right here, guys, holy cow. It's like you take the MR2 from the mid 90s, you fast forward it 100 years, and this is what we get. It has a Targa top to it, a removable top. I'm just salivating at this point. I want it. I want to drive it. So these two are going to probably share similar driving components, maybe battery, maybe really super high power electric motors as well. But here we are, guys. I mean, obviously this is for public transportation, the e-pallet. This is for industrial use or small businesses. Same thing with this little carrier here. High performance cars, utility vehicles. I mean, this FJ replacement almost looks like an electrified Bronco Sport. And this is very Tacoma looking, definitely from this profile. So we have the full gamut here of Toyota vehicles. EVs for everyone is what Toyota is calling it. But guys, I'm going to end it there. There's a lot to talk about. I could spend so much more time, and I probably will as I digest this information over the next few days and weeks. And I said I'd give you guys some Lexus news just briefly if you missed my video, but I totally recommend watching it because it's pretty darn fun. Anyways, Lexus, fully 100% battery electric by 2030 in North America, Europe, and China. Then you look at 100% global Lexus lineup by 2035, and they want to sell 1 million EVs by 2030 in the Lexus lineup. RZ is coming next year. Sports battery EV, that really impressive looking vehicle, 0 to 60 in the low 2s, over 700 kilometers of range, which is probably around 400 miles, solid state battery more than likely, and I hope it comes out in 2025 or so. But what Toyota vehicle did you see today that made you the most excited? Electric FJ? Was it that mid-engine replacement? The future MR2 that has a removable top, looks sick as hell? Or you're just looking for an electric version of your Highlander, something like that with a 3 rows? I'll see you guys down below. So much to talk about. Toyota just shocked the world, pun intended. I'll see you in the next video. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Toyota Lexus news and reviews. See you in the next one.